I've just got back from seeing a preview of Stan and Ollie, because I'm lucky, I suppose. It's released in the UK on the 11th of January, and it's the story of Laurel and Hardy towards the end of their career. They'd made their last film in the early 50s, and in preparation for what they'd hoped was more of a comeback project, a film based loosely around Robin Hood, they went on a tour of theatres around the UK and Ireland. And the film is the story of this tour, of this final chapter of a career that had its faults, it had its downsides. And I liked it a great deal. I found myself thinking in comparison to Bohemian Rhapsody, because that too is a story of iconic entertainers, and it also plays quite fast and loose with the facts. But while Bohemian Rhapsody just invents things out of whole cloth, or completely reinterprets events that had a established specific structure, Stan and Ollie instead contextualises things. It brings up arguments that they may not have had at the time, but which had certainly occurred in the past. So the story feels like a culmination of their lives, rather than a concluding sequence of events. There was a period in the late 30s where they had split, where Stan went off to another studio and Ollie, who was still under contract, had to make a film with another comedian, and this rankled with Stan, and during the course of the film this becomes a source of great tension between the two of them. I don't think there's any real evidence that it actually happened that way while they were on the tour, but it's a microcosm of their whole relationship, that they loved each other, that they worked well together beautifully, but that there was still a certain interpersonal tension, even though that they were actually great friends. They started as work colleagues, they became friends. Steve Coogan and John C. Reilly play the leads. They're both exceptional. I did forget after a while that it was them, because their performances are so sincere and emotionally real. And their wives also are major characters, and as it's mentioned in the film, they're almost a double act of their own, because Lucille Hardy is short and dark, Ida Laurel is tall and blonde, and they have very conflicting personalities, and are very strong, powerful women in their own rights. So they make an interesting kind of distaff counterpart to the Stan and Ollie relationship. Overall, I really enjoyed it. Some of the dialogue, particularly early on, I found a bit on the nose, a bit too expository, a bit clumsy in how it was trying to bring the audience up to speed with the state of their career. There's an opening sequence which is structured as a single shot, where they're in their dressing room, they walk through the whole studio lot onto the set to begin filming the dance sequence from Way Out West, and there's a lot of very heavy-handed dialogue just explaining everything the audience needs to know so that the rest of the film makes sense. And it's clumsy, and it's really not what I expected from Jeff Pope, who's done some really excellent work on other scripts for television and for film. He wrote Philomena with Steve Coogan, he wrote Appropriate Adult and Lucan for ITV. He's done a lot of these true life stories. And he's normally more deft than that, but there's just a lot of heavy lifting to do in the first 10 minutes. But then it becomes much more of a character piece with the plot's thread of this tour. The real joy is we see sketches and parts of the tour, and we even see dramatised, as though it were being made for real, a scene from the Robin Hood picture Stan Laurel had been working on, which was never made. And we see it the way it might have looked had they actually done it, where Stan is describing a scene to Ollie, and we see it as it is in Laurel's imagination, as it would have been shot had it actually been made. And the notion of seeing new Laurel and Hardy material it's really quite wonderful, because so sincere and so good-hearted is the film that it ceases to be just imitation. It feels like Coogan and Reilly are embodying the spirits of Laurel and Hardy, both the men and the characters of Laurel and Hardy. So seeing them perform their material, it's like seeing the boys back.